All right, you know what it is, man. I'm here with one of DC's finest, Big Red. That's where we give the gunshots to let you know that Big Red is in the house. Now, Big Red is here, man. Y'all wanted this. Let me open my shirt up and show little jewels and all that. You know what I mean? Let me get fly. Let me get on my Harlem shit because I'm with my DC brother. And you know, they fly, we fly. This how we do. Yeah, I mean, let me get comfortable. You know what I mean? Let me get comfortable for my man Big Red. Now I'm gonna bring him up. He gonna tell you who he is real quick. You know what I mean? We got Big Red here. Tell him who you are, where you from, what you was charged with, and how much time you did. All right, Red?
Yeah. My name is Harold Roberts, aka Big Red. Right. I was sentenced to 60 years of life for kidnapping, armed robbery. That was on one particular case. Anyway, I served 39 years, and I'm free, and I'm blessed.
And you looking good, Red, and you looking good. Now, when I did the show the other day, we did a phone interview because my man just came home. I didn't want to make it too complicated for him, you know? So we did a phone interview, and from us doing that phone interview, it's like we had a bunch of haters. You know what I mean? I ain't even gonna say haters. You know, a bunch of people that just didn't understand the gangster, you know? So they said I was hitting the gunshots too much. You know, I explained to them in another video yesterday that gunshots is when a person speaks jewels and wisdom. So they must bear with the gunshots and let the gangsters ride. You know how you remember when we was growing up, Red, they had an old saying that they said children should be seen and not heard. And that's not in a disrespectful form. Children, family, Unique Mecca Audio family. You know, the new people to Unique Mecca Audio, please sit back and just enjoy the ride and let me run my show. That's all I ask. It's different, it's unique, it's one of a kind. Now just enjoy the show. Now, Red, how old was you when you went to prison? And tell them, you know, what you were sentenced for.
Well, actually, I went to prison and turned 19 in prison, and that was in 1973, and it was for armed robbery and a couple of assaults, I would imagine, right? And I was in the state of Maryland, and during the passage of time, I escaped several times, and on one of the escapes, I picked up 60 years of life in D.C. I guess Maryland got kind of tired of me escaping from their prison so often. So they shipped me to Lorton in D.C. I eluded that establishment. So they went on to send me to the feds where they feel that that system could hold me.
What year was that?
I went to the Fed. I went to Lorton again in 1992. I escaped from Lorton in 1995 or 6, I don't remember. And from there, they shipped me off to the feds until I came home in 2021.
Okay, what was Lorton like, you know, back in the 70s and 80s? Give them an idea of the violence, the corruption, and just how Lorton, you know, how you had to be on man time in Lorton.
You know, when I first entered the penal system in the state of Maryland, the Baltimore Penitentiary itself, it was considered to be the big house or the epitome of all other penitentiaries in that system. So I was relatively young, and because I was aggressive, they Maryland sent me to the penitentiary. Now I'm just assuming this because it was a valid prison, and I was young, so they wanted one or two things to happen: either I die, get killed, or be a punk. So naturally, I elected to die. You understand? But the penitentiary was like neutral turf as opposed to the other institutions. So a lot of the geographics, right, was began to deteriorate. The same struggle on other prison yards in that system. It was unlike the penitentiary, and it was older guys. I was young, and have heard so many stories about it, the killing, the rapes and murders and all this. So I went in there and with the intentions on of being a figure on them yards. So naturally, at that time, I went and got me one of them handles off them paper cutting machines, and I made me a sword. And I knew I had to, you know, establish myself on them yards. So I welcome any negativity so I could get a name, a reputation, because I was stuck in that dark place, allegedly, to never be free. So, see, in the penitentiary, it ain't no way to hide, right? The walls got ears and thousands of eyes in every cell block. So, you can't do nothing in the dark that don't come out in the light. And so, I told myself, I said, shit, if a motherfucker asks me for a light on a cigarette, he gonna have a problem. You understand? So I had situations I never had a problem, you know, and I was just determined. I think a lot of that come from being a child and your mother saying, "You the man of the house, man up, man, man, man." And so I embraced that concept, and I began to differentiate between what was manliness to me and a code. Say, no man is bigger than the rule, right? And everybody succumb and embrace and give honor to the codes in the penitentiary as well as in the street. So nobody is exempt from those rules. So I feel like shit. I'm gonna be stuck in here forever. And so you could call it a reputation or a name, and you know, they don't sell respect and stripes and honor in Walmart, you know. So you have to earn it. And so on them yards, I earned it and I became a figure of respect. You know, it's a difference between fearing a man and respecting a man. And everybody knew that everybody in the joint had a knife. And so it was no big U's and little me's. But everybody stayed in their place, you know. The weak guys, the less stronger ones, homosexuals, and all of that. And so I hear you talk on your podcast about rats and so forth. You know, they had no voice, no place on them penitentiary yards. They wasn't even seen if they could somehow slip through the cracks and be on one of them yards. So I didn't particularly like bullies, right? And having fought in the street lifelong with my hands, I fought so much that I got good at it. So I took the street fight game and incorporated it in a boxing game. And I excelled in that area with hands. But on that penitentiary yard, wasn't nobody fighting. You know, if you had a beef, you need to get it over with. So, like you always say, man, respect man. And so, to sum it up, sometimes you got to lace your boots up and you can laugh and joke and do your time. But when it come time to step your game up, that's what you did.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you, man. Now, how old was you when you went to prison for the first time in 73?
Are you speaking of juveniles or the big house?
Let's start from juveniles. You know, what was your charges and what you went to jail for? What was that experience like for you?
I guess as a kid, I might have been 11, 12. And I guess the biggest fold was the fact of being away from home. You know, it was almost like, you know, as a kid, like being punished or chucked, and your mother said you can't go outside. So now you in a juvenile facility, and you look out your bedroom window, and all your friends and kids playing in the street. So you kind of miss that, right? You understand that?
Yeah, so what was it like your first time when they put you in a cell? When you first walked into a juvenile institution and they put you in a cell, what went through your mind, Big Red?
Um, Probably uncertainty, not knowing what to expect for the first time, and you just, I guess, you mentally prepare yourself for whatever you know transpires, and so naturally you have to learn the routine, you know, of lights out, what time you go to breakfast, what time you lock in the cell, and once you get a footing on that, then it's kind of like an easy ride. And so you convince yourself that, like, mom, she ain't gonna cook no breakfast in the morning, right? She ain't gonna wash your clothes, right? So you got to kind of like fend for yourself. You understand that?
Yeah. Now, my thing is let me tell you my experience. Let me tell you my experience. When I first walked into a cell, all I saw was these four walls, and it was like, I can't do it. There's no way I can survive in these four walls. And I was going in the shoe, what they call the hole. So I was like, they want me to sit back here for 14 days. And I'm looking at these four little walls as a little boy. And it freaked me out where my first night, my first day, as I laid on that concrete floor, because we didn't have beds. As I laid on that concrete floor, I had to breathe because I felt claustrophobic. Like everything was caving in on me. Like, yo, I mean, my mind, just so you youngins understand, I'm doing this so that y'all know that this is nothing nice and I don't want y'all to enter this world. But it was like I'm laying on this cold concrete floor with a little sheet over me, not even a blanket, a little sheet. And I'm freezing and I'm shivering, and I felt like the walls was closing in. But at the same time that I felt like the walls was closing in, I started losing my breath like a fish out of water, where I had to breathe. You know what I mean? Gunshots to that, because I survived it, And after that, then it was a smooth ride. Now you explain that experience when you first walked in those closed-in walls, Red?
See the difference between your situation and mine. Like most of my friends had gone off to juvenile facilities, and when they would return home, it was like a big issue. You know, like they got a welcome home party, and they would give you the spiel about what it was like to be away from home. So I kind of was prepared, you know, or I knew what to expect coming from, you know, word of mouth from my friends. And so now I know this might sound crazy, but I couldn't wait to go, right? Because I wanted to fit in, you know, I wanted to have me some prison stories to tell, right? So I just didn't know, you know, strategically what was going to transpire, you know. Do I do this first, that first? So it's unknown. And so I just clenched my fist and prepared myself for whatever was going, you know, was going to come my way, you know. So, you know, I guess the first 2, 3 nights, days in a prison cell, you know, you got to adjust and get used to it. And it's the mental thing, I think, initially, right? Uh, the blankets was thin as hell, right? Abraham Lincoln and everybody slept on them joints before. And the funny part was back then they had them little, what we called it under drawers. And so you never got no brand new underwear. It was drawers that somebody else had worn. So I feel a little irky about, you know, putting on somebody else's drawers. But that was the way of the thing. Then, you know, having to shower with 20, 30 guys. Um, but you knew, I did, that it was just temporarily, right? So juveniles at best, maybe 6 months to a year. So I'm saying I think I can handle that. But I was being real observant and I took in my surroundings and everything. So I'd have a story that, in my mind or my opinion, would surpass my buddies' stories, right? And that's how it was for me, Unique.
Yeah, okay. Because I say that because see, I was the forerunner. I didn't have anybody coming back to tell me what it was like. You understand? So I had to go and I became the one to come home to say it wasn't shit when it was shit. But at the time, I felt I had to put on this bravo that I survived and it ain't nothing and da da da. They couldn't hold me. I mean, did you ever have those feelings, Red?
Of course, man. Even if it was rough or tough, you know, some stories you don't tell, right? But um, I was I earned the name Big Reds because I was actually small in stature at the time, but my spirit was larger than what I actually was, right? And so uh, the stigma, the name, the title, I feel that I had to live up to it. And I guess you could call it peer pressure or whatever, right? And so my little crew and growing up, uh, because I was Big Reds, they would push me out front all the time, right? And I had to really exercise, you know, that position that I was assigned to, right? And you know, as I got older, not to put the cart before the horse, it was like I didn't always want to be Big Reds, right? And my mother didn't like the title, right? You know, that's not your name, boy, you know. And but having been given a title um, kind of made you feel like you was somebody, right? And then coming up, my peers, it was, it wasn't no actually Malcolm X's and Martin Luther King's running through the hood. So it was pimps, players, and hustlers. And so I began to mimic and learn from them, right? And right outside my house was an alley. So all the heavy hitters, they would shoot crap outside my house, and I would sit in my bedroom window, and I knew that it was just a matter of time before a fight would break out. And I remember my mother saying, and I used her a lot because I didn't have no father, like to talk about it. But she said, Riz, man, she would call me Harold. She said, you see all those guys that got them titles, killer, bruiser, jawbreaker, right? She said, you look at their head, their bodies, gunshot wounds, stab wounds, scars all over their head. How tough could they be to have all them them titles and. And so I said, shit. So I stepped my game up, and I said, man, I'm not gonna wear no whole lot of scars from somebody. So in the ring and boxing, they would always tell you be first. And so I embraced that. I became an advocate of being first. And most of my wounds are interior. They inside of me, my struggle, But anyway, that's another story.
Okay. Now you mentioned that your father wasn't there. Now, when did your father leave, and how did you feel about your father leaving? And the key question is, how do you think your father leaving affected, your upbringing to make you into the man that you became today?
It wasn't the fact that he left because I never know or remembered his presence. You understand? I was of a light hue. My mother was dark. And so I thought she was the strongest black woman in captivity, to be honest with you. And so I remember my mother saying, boy, your father out there, and me and my brother, I'm the baby in the family. We would run out there, sit on the curb. He was fly. My old man is from New Orleans, and he was tall. He was of a light complexion, and he always had a Cadillac. And so we would sit out there, and he would play his role as a father and pop his trunk of the car and throw some shoes at my feet. It was always some bullshit, you know what I'm saying, to talk about it, right? Everybody back then was wearing, like they call it Converse. Today we call them Chuck Taylors. Everything he would lay on the ground was imitation. It wasn't real, authentic, official. But we were poverty stricken for real, right? It wasn't no food stamps when I came up. A big old army truck would pull up in the hood, and your mother would go out and show her identification and how many people were in the household, and the soldiers would pass on, beans, spam, and cheese, and so forth, right? So, I used to laugh when I tell this story, Unique, but I used to go in my refrigerator, and you could wave your hand inside and not knock over a goddamn thing because there wasn't nothing up in that junk, right? And so we speak about right, wrong, morality, right? And we speak even today about the problems of the world. And I hear nobody speaking of an alternative, right? And so all the icons, and I know I'm moving right, along icons today, the raps, NBA, NFL players, and so forth. It's kind of hard to pull up in the hood and you pop the door and flip the wings up on Ferraris and Maseratis, and you advocate and stop the ballots, right? And you're sitting on top of the world, right? So what's the alternative, you know? And naturally the kids, they want what they see. And they begin to mimic and try to duplicate what they see. And so as a child and coming up, a lot of stuff was kept from out of view for us. We didn't see it, right? Not in the house. We had to go and venture out into the street and the world to pick up on some game and to hone some survival skills and so forth, right? But I remember, I remember one day I'm talking about I was so goddamn hungry, Slim. My stomach was touching my back. So I ventured out of the hood into what we would call middle-class black folks neighborhoods. And as I was traveling through there, I used to look at the homes and I said, damn, man, I want me a house like that. And it just seemed like it was so unified and so peaceful and so much love was being exhibited up in these houses. They in the yard with lawn chairs and pools. So this particular day, the aroma, I knew it was an apple pie. It excelled my sense of Slim. So I followed the trail of the scent. Sitting on the windowsill was 2 apple pies, cooling off. I looked around, wasn't nobody in sight. I said, God damn. I snatched them pies, tucked them under my arm, ran back to the hood, and broke bread with the family. Everybody got a big slice of pie before we went to school. And so people would ask me, did I think it was right? Did I think it was wrong or something morally to do? I mean, but who in the hell stop and think about right and wrong and you're hungry, right? So a lot of this was my introduction into what I would call criminal activities, right? You got that?
Cheers, cheers, toast the crime, toast the crime, the crime, the crime, the crime.
What?
Fresh out the can of 26, he back on the strip, getting back in the mix. What he mentions a gift. You stand up 10 toes down, and I suggest you pay attention to this.
Real.
Take a little gully posse and put it in Harlem. He cut from the bottom, came up from the bottom. Drop the book, you should go and get it. An Instagram page and a YouTube, you could go and visit. Then you could consider yourself LinkedIn. Sit front row and get Jews from a kingpin. How he went through it, so you ain't gotta go do it. To not pay attention would be stupid. Talking about a man that probably put your grandfather on. Probably the reason that him and your grams got along. A man that generated millions on the block, did his time, never squilling to the cops, Mecca audio. Get it live like 2 G's in the 90s. Drop top beamer so shiny. I let shorty go, she was wine. Treat her like my past, she behind me. Spend a couple bands on the Dapper Dan. Yui back again, getting green like a Packers fan. No cap, it's a roaring uptown. They be horn uptown, Dominican bust downs. Now we on the positive, Yui got a lot to give. Now he trying to stop the kids from being inoperative. So take heed, homie, lend a ear. He started in uptown, he gon' finish dead. But now it ain't about selling drugs, buying cars. It's about buying property to make the community ours. So we can give back to the youth them. Cause they the truth them. And bless up to all the road